Welcome back to the second session of learning or working with ArcGIS. So here in this session, we will study or we will learn working with vector data. What are vector data? Well, we know that there are two major data structures under which information is stored, the spatial information is stored. One is the vector data, the second is the raster data. Raster data are a bunch of pixels continuously distributed in a given datum or in a given domain of interest, right? Whereas the vector data are stored as either points, lines, or polygons. The vector data are a discrete form of data, right, wherein you may have on a particular point in space, you may have a measurable value, but then in its neighborhood, one delta ball around may have no value, right? And then a little further, you may have another area with some value and without value and so on. So no data and yes data are sort of discretely distributed in space as polygons, lines, and points. That's it, right? So I'm going to, on your screen, what you see here is a source of vector data, which we have introduced in our lectures as well, called as the DIVA GIS. So I've just Googled DIVA GIS and it gives me this first link as www.diva-gis.org. When I click on this, when I click on DIVA GIS, free, simple, and effective, this particular page opens up. So now it has a lot of information about the data. You should always read the information of the data that you are using. Okay, very, very important. So I'm going to go into, without sort of spending time on other aspects, which you should definitely look at. Whenever you are writing papers or publishing reports for academic journals or professional, business related or any other professional report which is going to be in public domain or is going to be reviewed by some of your peers, you must document the details about spatial data. It is incredibly important because the data come with its metadata, right? So its definition is embedded in the metadata. So if you don't read this documentation, you're going to misrepresent. You are very likely to misrepresent your analysis as well, right? Okay, so I'm just going to click on free spatial data. Now it gives me data on country level, global climate data, species occurrence data, crop gene bank collection data, near global 90-meter resolution elevation data. Now that world hillshade that we saw on the map on ArcGIS portal in the previous session is a elevation map. So you can actually have one downloaded from alternate sources. Okay, so I'm going to go to, and then it says a very good list of data sources from the Eden project. So just look up the Eden project. These are very interesting starting points, honestly. One of the, basic queries of people who, who want to work with spatial data is, where will I get these data from? Well, it turns out that there are now incredible amounts of resources as far as the spatial data are concerned. Okay, such queries are now lesser and lesser, but when I teach, students, for first anxiety is, will I be able to access this data? Will I get these data? Well, yes, you will be able to access these data. Simple Google search will lead you to incredible amounts of spatial data, okay, of both vector and raster kind, right? It may not be stored in your traditional .csv formats that you are very used to, but they're very accessible in their own right. Okay, so let's look at the country level data. So I'm going to click on download country level data for any country in the world. It'll give me administrative boundaries, roads, railroads, altitude, land cover, and population density. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to go for country level data. Okay, I'm interested in, so now again there's a lot of information. All this information must be, you should definitely make a note of it. Now look at the administrative boundaries. The format is vector. Inland water, vector, line and area. Roads, vector, it's a line, okay? It's a line vector. So, so it's a line format. Elevation is a grid format, and so on and so forth, okay? Now, I'm going to go to download the Indian data. So, I'm going to go to India. Now, I can download many types of data. I can download administrative areas, inland water, roads, railroads, elevation, and so on and so forth, okay? I'll just say download administrative areas, and it says download, and I say okay. So here now I download a zip file. It says ind_adm.zip. I can go back and I can say, okay, I also want roads data. So okay, then I say download. So it says, okay, now I'm downloading ind_roads.zip file. So you will get these files as zip files, and then you will have to unzip them. So let's do it for one of them. So I'm going to say show in folder, and I'm going to say copy X. I'm going to take it to where I am used to. I'm going to my practice sessions, and I'm going to say, all right, India ADM, right click, extract all, and okay, you can say extract. All right, so I have all these files that are now available in India ADM. Okay, this is the extracted version. This was the zipped version on your screen. IND ADM is the zipped version, and there is this extracted version. So the extracted version now has many different files. Okay, it also has a license, which is a text document. You must open it and you must read it, because it will tell you that these data can be used for what purpose. It is not allowed to redistribute these data, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to provide you this data anywhere. You have to download it yourself. I'm not going to distribute it. Okay. All right. And it has been extracted from this source called GADM database. So I am not making these data. Okay. These data are publicly available on GADM database. And this is not the only source for India's administrative data. Okay. You can get administrative data from Indian government sources as well, right? So it's up to you how you search the data, where you download them. It's all up to the analyst. Here I'm only providing you an example, a popular source of data for different countries. Let's say you are doing different, country level analyses. So you need these, you might use these data, and so on and so forth. So far as India's data is concerned, India would have its own database. If it's, some other country like United States or China, Afghanistan, they will have their own sources, and it depends, how accessible those data are they freely downloadable, what kind of request process you have to go through to get to those data. All of those things are, subject matters, very contextual to countries and all that. Okay, their data distribution, privacy properties, and so on and so forth. But the point is that you should always, it is not allowed to distribute, use them for commercial purpose without prior consent, okay? So this is something to keep in mind while you are using these data. So now let's look at the data by itself. So we have ind_adm zeros. So I have .cpg, .csv, .dbf, and .prj, and .shp, and .shx. So there are these 6 files that come under India ADM 0. And then similarly, there will be 6 other files that will come under India ADM 1, 2, and 3. So these are all vector data. If you have heard of vector data earlier, you would have heard of this name called the shapefile. So one of the extensions is .shp, whether it's India ADM 0, India ADM 1, 2, or 3. There is always a .shp file. This is a shapefile. Any vector format is always shared as, usually stored as a shapefile. When we talk of shapefiles, we don't just talk about one file. We talk about a bundle of files that come together. So shapefiles or vector data always come as bundles. What do these bundles comprise of? Well, for starters, apart from SHP, I have a file called .prj. Now, you can take a guess what .prj would constitute. It will constitute the geographic, projection system, right? Geographic coordinate system. What is the projection system? Is it GCS, WGS 1984, it is, is it Albers equal? So there are various projection systems from which this data might be projected. This file is absolutely mandatory for me to have in order to project it onto ArcGIS. Can we construct these files on our own? Well, all of these are matters of training, right? But the point is that these data don't come just as a dot at one file. Okay, SHP is obviously the file which is going to be used to visualize the data onto ArcGIS. We will see that in a minute. Then we also have these files called DBF and .csv. .csv is something we are used to. .csv looks like a comma separated version. So it's basically a something like an Excel sheet where the information is stored in a gridded format. Now, how does that get integrated into a shapefile, which is a visual vector file? That we will see in some time when we visualize these data. Okay, so we have India ADM 0, 1, 2, 3. How are they different? Well, the best way is to actually look at them in the software itself. Okay, so you will see that under this, I have already sort of downloaded and stored these data under India ADM. So I have India ADM, roads, railroads, and inland waterways. So I have downloaded 4 types just for the purpose of education. Okay, these data are not constructed by me. They are coming from a source. I have shown you the source, right? So if they have any kind of a mismatch with the official Indian government data, that's not my doing. It's just a source. It's just an easily accessible source which I am using for purely instructional purposes here. Okay, so here let's go and look at the data on on ArcGIS. So I've now opened the SSSE ArcGIS project that I had saved in the previous module, right? So I had saved this in the previous session, in session 1. So in session 2, I'm starting where I had left. So I have my contents pane, I have my map pane, I have my catalog pane. Under catalog and under folders, I have this Gaurav ArcGIS, and under practice sessions, now I have my project. I have also my India admin data, but where did other data go? So, let me go back to the Windows Explorer. Yeah, okay. So under practice sessions, I have now, 1 second, I have India admin data, but I also have these data, these 2 zip files, India ADM, India RDS, and India ADM, which is the extracted version. The question is, why don't they show up here? Well, they don't show up here because I did not refresh this. So let me just left click on this one under practice sessions, and I'm saying to say refresh. Okay, fantastic. So it shows me India ADM now. It doesn't show me the zip files. So Arc Catalog does not catch or does not read the zip files, but it reads the extracted files. So now I have 3 types of, one is the SSSE ArcGIS project, India ADM, and India admin data. Now I can also, by the way, delete these data right from here. So I can say delete. Do you want to delete this item? I'm going to say yes. If I do that and if I go to my Explorer, and I do refresh, the India ADM file is gone from here. Okay, I can again extract India roads. I can say extract all, extract, and if I do again, I go to practice sessions, I say refresh, it brings it here. Okay, so I'm basically navigating folders from within ArcGIS. Basically, I'm just trying to show you that. Okay, now let's go to India ADM again. So here are my files, India ADM. Here are my files. So, I see a lot of these, India SHP, SHX, and so on and so forth. There are some of these desktop files which you can ignore, but, now the packet is much larger. But the idea is that, we have all these files still. Now, under this project, if I go to India ADM, I see only 4 files, the India ADM 0 SHP, India ADM 1 SHP, India ADM 2 SHP, and India ADM 3 SHP. So what happens is within Arc Catalog, it only is reading the SHP file. But in the original folder, I have a packet of files, not just one file, right? So it's very important to note this. Now, if I move India ADM 0, let's say I say copy and I say, can you take it to India ADM roads? Okay, I can say paste. Now here, what it does, it's still working, but it actually copies India ADM 0 for IND ADM folder to IND underscore roads folder. Now let's look at what happens to the physical folder. Now this is the ArcGIS catalog. Let's look at the physical folder. I'm going to go to practice sessions and India roads, and it actually brought all the files related to India ADM 0. So when I move from files from within Arc catalog, it's moving the bundle automatically. This is very, very good for me. Remember, when I'm working, when each layer, when each image layer is going to have a packet of 6 to 7 files and I'm moving them around, then it may be very problematic for me if I were to do them physically. I can make a mistake while doing them manually. So it is always advised to move files from within Arc catalog because you cannot make a mistake when you do that. Okay? All right. So now that we have learned that, the utility of Arc catalog really is that we can move files as full packets from one location to other. In physical folders, I'll have to manually select, make sure nothing is left out. If anything is left out, the whole packet becomes useless because it may not then project these things, right? If you don't bring the projection, it doesn't know what to visualize, where to put the coordinates. If you don't bring the CSV, it will not have the data that is embedded, right? So the best practice is to always move spatial data from Arc catalog and not, physically, right? So that's knowledge set number 1. Okay, so now that I've done that, let me work with India ADM data. Okay, so I'm going to now start to work with India ADM data. So let's say I have India ADM 0. So now what is the difference between 0, 1, 2 and 3? Well, I have to actually look at the data and then make a sense of it. So I'm going to simply click and drag the data onto the map. And here we go. Okay, so it's a data set which has a bit of a polygon sitting inside of it, right? So it shouldn't have been like that, but this is a data set which has come from DIVA GIS. So I can write, I want to rename it, and I'm going to say rename it to DIVA GIS. So it has come from a source, yeah. So it can help me, keep a track of, let's say if I'm getting my data from different sources, I can say, okay, I'm going to say, all right, so rename, I'm just for everyone, I'm just going to always keep adding source just as best practice. Okay, a recommended best practice is to always add sources to the data in their names itself. It's very helpful when you're writing papers that are based on multiple sources of data and so on and so forth. Okay, we can move from 0 to 1. What is the difference between 0 and 1? Oh, okay, so now it seems that the 1 is also providing me states. So the first polygon was an India level polygon. The second polygon is the state level polygon. Okay, so now you have India ADM, and let's say you have ADM 1, then you have India ADM 2. Okay, now India ADM 2 has even smaller polygons. What are those, right? How do I know what these polygons are? Well, let me actually go and look at India ADM 3, what it has, and then we'll come back to this question. Let me project India ADM 3. Wow, it has even further small polygons. Okay, and I guess, if you're from India, you will start to make, even if you're from any country in the world, you will start to make sense of what these things, what these smaller entities are. They are basically smaller administrative units. For example, in India, we have states as administrative units. Within states, we have districts as administrative units. Within districts, we have taluks or tehsils as administrative units. So going from 0, national level map, to the second layer, state level map, to district level map, and to tehsil level map. How do I know that? Well, on the left hand side in the contents pane, what has happened in the process of looking at these things was that, I added layers in addition to world topographic map and world hillshade. If you were not working with either of them, that is no problem. Okay, that is no problem. If you were working with an older version which did not have world hillshade or world topographic, it's not a problem. You will see the map like this on your screen. Okay, you will see it like this on your screen, where you will not have a base map. That's fine. It doesn't change anything for me. What is important is that each layer is somehow sitting on top of the other, right? Each layer is sitting on top of the other. Okay, and if I right click, let's say I right click on India ADM1, let's work with the state level layer. Okay, now if I right click on the state level layer, I can see various things. I can see attribute table, which is going to be very important for me, and I see properties. So I will always start with properties. I really like to first look at my data, look at its properties. It directly throws me to this tab called source under properties, and it tells me that this is a shapefile feature class. So it's a shapefile, we know it's a polygon data, so it's a shapefile and it's a feature class. So shapefiles are often referred to as features. So polygons, lines, points are often referred to as features, vector data. Instead of saying vector explicitly, if it says feature data, features are often referring to vector data in the ArcGIS terminology. Geometry type is polygon, we know that. Shapefile, it shows me the exact location of it. So if you see some data open and you don't know where it's located, you can get to the location from here, from the properties. Then you have your spatial reference, WGS 1984. Aha, very good. So I can actually now, I know from my previous session, or I can just go back and look at world topographic data. Okay, and I can just say properties, under spatial reference I have WGS 1984. So that is why I can overlay the state level file onto the world topographic map and actually start comparing regions. Okay, let me try to do that. So let me do this. Now the trouble is, because of the color scheme, which is called as a symbology. So another thing here, when I right click onto India ADM1, a very interesting thing that I see is symbology. If I go to symbology, I can actually, work and get a different color. Let's say I get a black outline. In this black outline, I do not, see the solid color blue. I only see the boundaries, right? So what I really have here is, let's say, data on Rajasthan. Here is the state Rajasthan called Jodhpur and Jaipur. Okay, it makes sense. These are two cities in Rajasthan. Then we have New Delhi. It is there where it's supposed to be. We have Mumbai, Pune, Nasik. They are where they are supposed to be, right? And we have Uttar Pradesh and so on and so forth. Now what tells me that this is Uttar Pradesh, this is Rajasthan, this is Gujarat, this is Maharashtra? Well, because because of my existing knowledge. But if I'm working for different countries of data, I may not be aware of the states of different countries. So where do I make sure that I am at the right track, that this is indeed going to be West Bengal, and this is indeed going to be Jharkhand, and this is indeed going to be Bihar, and here I'm looking at Bhopal and Indore, which is in Madhya Pradesh. So how do I really make sure? So for that, when we looked at the bundle, the packet of the shapefile, it had this file called .csv. That CSV file stores such information in what is called as the attribute table. So I'm going to right click and then select attribute table, open table, and what it does is it opens attribute tables. Now here I have a FID, which is a field ID. It says shape, which is polygon, and it has an ID number, ISO name, it has a name 0, ID 1, name 1, and there are other information here. It has latitude, longitude, which is center of mass. But the point is, I have a data set in terms of India ADM1 where every entity, sub-entity is a polygon. There are 37 such polygons. Okay, on the lower bottom bar, it says 0 to 37 selected, which tells me there are 37 data points. So there are going to be 37 unique polygons here. Okay, and as soon as I click on these polygons, I get what is also stored in the attribute table. Okay, so if I click on, let's say, Madhya Pradesh, it says FID 18. Okay, so let me go to FID 18. Okay, and then India, name 1 is Madhya Pradesh, name 0 is India. Okay, I'm going to now go to my attribute table and go to FID 18. FID 18, here we go. It's a polygon. Perfect. It is now selected. So if I click on the row, it selects the polygon for me. I have again ISO name India, name 0 is India, name 1 is Madhya Pradesh. So I have a cross validation of what my attribute table is actually showing. Okay, so similarly, I can go and I can actually, select Uttar Pradesh. Okay, so if I go up, sorry, not here on the map. If I go up, I look at Uttar Pradesh, it's going to be FID 34. So let me go to FID 34. Here we go, FID 34, and it should select Uttar Pradesh. If I want to select two different, states at once, I can press the control key. I can go to my, let's say again, I want to just look at 18, which is Madhya Pradesh, and I can select these two, and now you have both of them selected at once. Okay, so this way you can navigate through the data because under map, because explore, tab is selected right now, it's selected. Click, it gives me an information, it gives me a pop-up, it gives me all the information extracted from this attribute table itself. Okay, so the .csv file is equally very, very important. Now, if I want to remove selections, I can, on this, it's a very interesting one. I can just click on clear, right? I can also delete them, but don't do that because, it's permanently deleted. So you will have to then again download the data. So you have to be very careful with these functions. So here I can actually go onto this top, top left corner, and in this white box, if I click, it deselects everything. So it does the function, in the older versions, you will not have these clear, switch and all these buttons, but you can just explore and conduct all those functions even without explicit tabs for them. Okay, so I can also close the attribute table, right? So I've understood that I have states here. Let me go to the next shape. Okay, I go to the next shape. Okay, now I am in this shape. I do not know. It seems to me that these will be probably districts. Because of the symbology, again, I can't really visualize anything. I'm going to double click on the box here. Okay, earlier I right clicked and I went to symbology. Okay, this time I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take an alternate route and I'm going to click on this box with the color, with the pinkish color that India ADM2 has. I'm going to click it. It's going to directly take me to symbology. Fantastic, right? So I'm going to say, okay, I can do many things here, right? I can vary symbology by attribute. I can allow symbology property connections and so on and so forth. I can go to properties and I can actually play with a lot of things here. So under properties, I'm going to now say, I need no color. I don't need a fill. With the outline, I'm going to change the color. I'm going to make it, I'm going to make that colorful. Okay. And I'm going to say apply, and that's what we get. Okay. So now I have my states and I have what inside them. Let's go back to India ADM2 and open attribute table and see what we have. We have districts. So after my states, so I have India, I have states, right? I have states, okay? And now, apart from that, I also have districts, okay? I have districts, okay? All right, so I now know that I have another file which is districts, okay? So I have India ADM1, ADM0 is just national, okay? I'm going to rename and make sure that, so instead of ADM0, I'm going to call it national. ADM1, I'm going to now, ADM1, I'm going to right click and rename, and I'm going to call it states. ADM2, now I've just learned that this is district, so I'm going to just go and call it districts. Okay. And now what remains is ADM3. So in order to understand what ADM3 is, I'm going to go back and open ADM3. Okay. All right, so once I do that, I can see that I have, I can actually go in and I can say I want to, what if I want to zoom in? If I just scroll my mouse, I can zoom in, I can zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. So let's say I'm focusing on this district. If I click on it, I'll get some, information about it. I click on it. It selects India ADM2 because that's by list order, that's the topmost layer which is checked. Okay, so it's clicking India ADM2 if it's giving me FID 594, the name 0, which is the nation is India, that's the country name. Then the state name is Uttar Pradesh, and then finally name 2, which is district, is Hardoi. So for now, I'm going to focus on Hardoi, right? I'm going to focus on Hardoi. Keep your eye on Hardoi while I, let me just select Hardoi. So let me go to India ADM2. I will just open my attribute table. I will search for FID 594. FID 594 because that's where I know Hardoi is. 594. Here you are, India Uttar Pradesh district. I must make sure that I have. Okay, so let me try. There we go. I see Hardoi here, name 2, right? So, okay, so here we go. And it selects Hardoi. Fantastic. So, I'm going to, uncheck this. Now, when I check India ADM3, it gives me even smaller boundaries within Hardoi. Okay, so what's this higher resolution administrative unit? Okay, I'm going to just right click. I'm going to go to its attribute table, and what I'm going to learn is that I now look at taluk. Okay, now I'm looking at taluks within Hardoi. So if I click here, I'm going to get India, Uttar Pradesh, Hardoi and Hardoi. Okay, click here. I'm going to get India, Uttar Pradesh, Hardoi and Bilgram. So now I have this district, this sub-district is Bilgram, and this sub-district is Hardoi. What about this one here on the eastern corner? It's called Sandila, right? So now I know that I'm working with taluks and they have different names. How do I make sure that I can visualize them one over the other? Well, I'll have to go to symbology. I'm going to just close the map for a minute. I've closed the map. I am again going to symbology, double clicking. Click to modify symbology. All right, let's do that. Okay, it takes me directly to properties. Under galleries, I can actually select some predefined, symbologies. Under properties, I can create my own. So I don't need a fill. So I'm going to say no color. Instead, for the, okay, instead for, okay, so instead for the boundary or the outline, I'm going to use the color that resembles the fill. So let me do that. Okay, I'm just going to try my best to replicate it, but I'm not going to try too much. So I'm going to just make it a little thicker, right? And I'm going to say apply. I'm going to say, okay, when I apply, it's still applying. It's working. Okay, it's worked. All right, so now what happens is that I see I only see taluks. What happened to my districts and my states? Well, let's go back to the symbology for the districts and make them a bit thicker. Okay, I'm going to make it, let's say, thicker up to 3 point and say apply. And now I can see my districts somewhat, right? Let me change the color to a darker color. Okay, apply and close. Okay, so now very interestingly, Okay, I need to deselect everything. I'm going to go back to the attribute table of India ADM 3 and I'm going to say deselect or clear selection. I don't want this selection. Okay. Okay, it's a district level. Okay, sorry. So it's a district level data. So attribute table, please clear selection. Thank you. All right, so I can't see states. I'm going to go to the state symbology again and I am going to say, hey, I want to also view states. So I'm going to make its thickness the most. Okay, so here we go. All right, so now in black, whenever I see these black hashes, I know that those are state boundaries. Whenever I see the red hashes, I can say that those are, my district boundaries, and the blues obviously reflect the taluk boundaries. Okay, so I need to change the name. So I need to go to I can't see my catalog pane. I've lost my catalog pane. I'm going to now recreate it for a minute, just a second. I'm going to say insert, or I'm going to go to view. I'm going to click on catalog pane. Okay. And now here, I'm going to rename India ADM 3 to say Taluk. Taluks. Okay. So now I've renamed data in my folder. I'm going to try and see that, whether that has happened. Okay. I'm going to say refresh. I'm going to go to the physical folder now. I'm going to the physical folder. Okay. So let's see where you are. Where are you? India ADM data, practice sessions, India ADM data, India ADM. Fantastic. Now look at this. Wonderful. We have India districts. So India ADM 2 has changed to India districts. India ADM 0 has changed to India national. All of them in the packet at once. So that's how powerful Arc Catalog is. So Arc Catalog is a database management software within the ArcGIS package. Okay, and it is very efficient, that you can see in front of your eyes. If you were to change this data on your own, you would have to go and change it to every physical file separately. Make sure the spelling is the same. You don't use capital letters somewhere, small letters somewhere. So it is very complex if you are going to physically manage data. It's not possible. And remember, we are just working with 5 files. On a particular project, one is working with at least 20 files, 30 files at once, right? So you can't possibly be thinking of working with these data, using, physical sort of, processes. All right, let's go back. Okay, so now again, let's say this is India, so I know all the state names and all that, and but let's say if this was not India, how would I know? So for that, I have this label feature, right? So I have this label feature. So I'm going to go to India ADM 2, ADM 1, where you have states, and I'm going to say label properties, label properties. When I click on this, the right hand side pane gives me label class, symbol, position, appearance, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to go to class and I'm going to say I want name 1 feature, double click name 1. Okay, so let me just delete everything on this expression and I'm going to double click on name 1, which is what I know the state name is, and I'm going to say apply. Okay, and under symbol I can then go and check the font name. I want Times New Roman. I'm a fan of Times New Roman. Okay, I want 10 point is too small for me. I want 14 points, let's say. I'm going to say apply. I can also check, figure out the color of the font and so on and so forth, right? So after I'm done, I can close this pane. I can go back to India ADM 1 and click on label. As soon as I do that, it wonderfully puts the names of the shape onto each state. And because of the way I've structured my symbology, so what I've done is I've checked the state file, the district file, and the taluk file. I've changed their symbology to make sure that I can visualize all 3 at once, right? And then what I'm doing is that I am actually, I can improve the symbology a little bit. Just give me a second here. So I am going to try and apply. Yeah, so this is too big. apply, and maybe I'll make it a little lighter. Yeah, apply. Okay, so I know that maybe a color like yellow might just, yeah, okay. So it's too much. Okay, apply. Okay, so you can play around with symbology, but the ultimately the idea is to sort of figure out a way to visualize all the different details. So interestingly, I have different states. Within Uttar Pradesh, I can which is demarcated by this black boundary. Within that, the red or the crimson boundaries are the district boundaries. Within that, the green boundaries, which can be a little darker. Let's try a little darker. Yeah, are fantastic. Now these are my taluk boundaries. So here is a symbology example, a labeling feature example, where I am able to visualize different parts of India, and I am able to create a very nice map, which is sort of, you can take this map, clip this map, download this map directly from ArcGIS and take it to publication. Okay, it identifies different features within ArcGIS. We are playing with symbology, we are playing with labeling features, and we are trying to create a visual, a picture of multiple layers put together, one over the other, where polygons of different size are visualized at once. Their location, their shapes, their sizes, their respective locations, and so on and so forth. One last tool I want to just talk about before we move on is this tool called Measure. So let's say if I go on to this area where I'm at the border between Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, I can go to this use this this tool called Measure, and I can actually go and look at the distance from particular district. Let's say the neighborhood district here of your taluk of Madhya Pradesh, its lowermost point, to the uppermost point of this taluk of Uttar Pradesh. It is 107 kilometers. So any 2 points in space that I'm interested in, or any path that I want to traverse, I can actually create a measure of them. Right? So the Measure tool is another thing that I'm just mentioning. I'm just showing you as a closing sort of tool here, which you can use to quickly get measures of distances between units on a map. This will become useful, more and more useful in the future exercises. Okay, so thank you. This is it for session 2. In the next session, we will start manipulating vector data. Right now, we have just visualized these things. Okay, all right. So see you in the next session for ArcGIS in learning vector data. Thank you.